Well, both New South Wales and Victoria have unveiled their plans for returning to school. They're almost identical in nature, and they won't be pushing back day one, term one, no matter where the peak of this Omicron wave sits. The Queensland government should take note. And it can't come quick enough. Unless you've had children in the senior grades of school in the past 2 years, you just can't comprehend how tough it's been for them to keep focused, to rely on their own self-discipline, to keep across the more difficult parts of the curriculum, and how tough it is to be away from the care, the help and the mateship children get from each other. Not to mention how hard it's been for them to miss out on so many of the big events, the sport and the big moments that all of us as adults often remember fondly years later. They won't ever have those memories. As one principal said to me last year, homeschooling has been an abject failure and has led to vast numbers of students giving education away altogether, more slipping through the cracks. But the naysayers are still stalking us, even to this day, with their negative Nelly approach to life, their perpetual bedwetting attitude to COVID-19. They argue, of course, that there's too much COVID in the community and kids will transmit that into and then out of schools with more disruptions and more uncertainty. The world is not perfect. It is a pandemic. And you know who they are. They've convinced the Queensland Premier that an immediate return was terribly dangerous. Not when Omicron was at its peak, they said. What rot. At its peak, they've got less than 900 hospitalisations in Queensland. As it's turned out, Omicron has at worst stabilised in New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland, at best past its peak in both New South Wales and Victoria. And in Queensland, their hospitalisation numbers are about 800 and more, 3,000 or 4,000 short of where they expected. When, of course, Anastasia Palaszczuk says, we can't start school. It'll be peak time. Their kids...
At this stage, I'm very relieved because we were expecting thousands upon thousands of people in our hospitals. It is a huge relief, but I don't want to get ahead of it at the moment because I'm very cautiously optimistic, but I want to see what happens in the next couple of weeks. But it is a relief at this stage, yes.
It didn't work. They got it wrong. The kids should be going back first day of school. Maybe some of these nervous Nellies would prefer if we just postpone the entire first term entirely, maybe. Pick a new date, Say the beginning of term 2, which is around about April 19. Let the kids file their way through term 1 and they can sit at home. They can be helped by their parents. Well, hang on a minute, people are trying to get back to work. That might suit them. They might think Omicron will be gone by then in April. What if there's a new variant? Big chance. Something a little bit more fatal, perhaps. How long are we going to run away and hide under the classroom desk and cause so much disruption to the foundation that kids need, which is education? We've got to have the courage to prioritise our children's education because I'm telling you, they have so much to catch up on. They are all behind. And that's not fair if we want to give them a strong foundation for life. Even today, the Murdoch Children's Research Institute released a review of literature and research into the significant toll the pandemic has been having on children's mental well-being, academic results and physical health. It noted that this toll had long-term negative impacts as well. Children are least impacted by COVID. They are also less likely to transmit the virus. These are the facts accrued from hundreds of case studies. We've known this for more than 18 months. Parents in New South Wales and Victoria are likely to be able to pick up their RA test kits on staff in service day next week, give or take a day or two, and they can start testing their children on the Monday or the Tuesday, if the Tuesday is the first day, and then Wednesday mornings in New South Wales for a month. That's the plan. In New South Wales, 5 million RA test kits have reached schools, and there are 5 million more coming. Some parents have already voiced objections to testing per se and testing twice. Now, the Education Chief, though, in New South Wales isn't overly concerned.
I am confident that the vast majority of parents will follow the instructions from their school, that they will use those rapid antigen tests twice a week. No parent wants to send their child to school if they are sick, and no parent wants other children in their class to be there if they're sick.
Even that twice-a-week testing protocol is overkill. One of my friends in the UK said that at his children's school, they do it once a week at the beginning of the week. And even last week, our CMO, Paul Kelly, was recommending RA tests only be used by children who had symptoms. So we're being very conservative and safety conscious. Students in Year 3 and above are being told to wear masks, but they're being ordered in the high school years, but in primary school recommended. And how's the Teachers Union in New South Wales? Despite all of those safety concerns and the measures that have been bundled into the protocols, these chief bedwetters, I tell you what, they want more testing now.
Rapid antigen tests as a surveillance mechanism where people would be tested, students and staff would be tested twice weekly. But what we say is that they can go even further than that, hence our argument for bolstering and strengthening these mitigation strategies. You can have a combination of surveillance, but also test and stay programs in between where required.
Oh, enough already. The teachers are all double jabbed, probably triple jabbed. Luckily, we have far more Omicron cases to deal with, as opposed to Delta, which did put a spanner in the works at certain schools last year around Australia. It's a very similar decision as to the choice in WA. The Premier there can choose to keep that state closed, to keep hiding from COVID. But if you reopen at another time, who's to say it'll be a better time? If he's waiting for 90% to be triple dosed, which is what we've heard from Mark McGowan, well, that'll get him to the beginning of winter. And in my rough understanding, that's not so flash for colds and flus at the beginning of winter through until the spring season. We're not immune to the 2022 flu because we didn't get it last year. As one epidemiologist said on the weekend, by the time he reopens, he'll have 2 virtual loads to contend with, the COVID pandemic and a raging flu season. Good luck with that. And the same applies to going back to school. If not now, when? And don't think that the when might be a better time, because it could be worse. The kids are ready. The teachers are ready. The rats are ready. And parents are more than ready. Let's get these kids back into the classroom everywhere.